So hello and welcome to an incredibly significant moment just in automotive history generally. What I am sat in is the first working prototype of the Aston Martin Valkyrie. It's incredible to see this thing. I think there's been a lot of doubters surrounding this project that Aston would be able to pull off what they have claimed so far on paper. But sure enough, behind me is a working engine and the hybrid drivetrain, which is ultimately going to be combined with that insane naturally aspirated 6.5 litre V12 developed by Cosworth. So the stats are out and I can confirm that the car is going to be running 1,160 brake horsepower. The naturally aspirated engine on its own is 1,000 brake horsepower. That is the highest output naturally aspirated engine to ever go in a road car, ever. Just bonkers. And then on top of that, Aston are mating their hybrid drivetrain to it. They have partnered with Red Bull Racing and Red Bull Advanced Technologies to develop this drivetrain, also in collaboration with Rimac, and the result is a car of 1,160 horsepower and 900 newton meters of torque in a car that weighs just over a ton. The power to weight ratio of this is going to reconfigure your face. I cannot wait to experience this. Obviously, having such early access to this is in part thanks to Michelin, but also Aston Martin and Red Bull for giving me such early access. As far as I'm aware, this is the first video filmed with what is the closest thing to a production version of the Aston Martin Valkyrie. And I cannot tell you, I've sat in their concept tub, which gave you a feel for what the car would be like and the driving position. But it's not until you get in this car, which is representative of what a finished production vehicle feels like, the quality of everything, the definition on these screens, just the finishing touches have elevated the feeling of being inside this car to such a degree that it's unlike anything else I've ever been in. Up until now, I thought it was going to be quite race car-like in its finish because of the stats and figures which are on paper. But the way they've refined this to make it a road car is absolutely berserk. So, the heart of the Aston Martin Valkyrie's powertrain is its Cosworth-built 65-degree naturally aspirated 6.5 litre V12 engine. If that isn't a mouthful, I don't know what is, but it's worth it. This is going to evoke a spine-tingling, ultra-high revving F1-inspired engine. This thing, from what I've heard, the engine on the bench sounds like a sort of 1990s F1 car. It truly is full of emotion, and I can't wait to hear this thing take on its own life when it's under load and driving out on the road or track. So certified peak power output is 1,000 brake horsepower, or 153.8 brake horsepower per litre at 10,500 RPM. It can continue on to a maximum of 11,100 RPM. And this is a world first for a naturally aspirated, emissions compliant road car, don't forget. Peak torque is 740 newton meters at 7,000 RPM. And these peak outputs are purely delivered by the internal combustion engine. And this is where it gets interesting, because there's a further performance boost delivered by the hybrid system. Okay, so I'm not sure if you watched any of my Valkyrie series, but what is unique to this, I mean, look, you can see how high the tub sits. You really are sat in a formula position. Just come a bit closer and check out this steering wheel. This is now close to a production wheel. It's hard to convey things like this on camera, but you might be able to hear the tactility of this. Check this out. Listen to, honestly, the weighting and the way that these paddle shifters are spring-loaded. It's just like finely crafted rifle trigger. Oh, it's absolutely stunning. And I think I can do this here. Look at this. So, and this is quite a good demo because you have to kind of take the wheel off to get out of the car. Look at that. Just like a Formula One wheel. In fact, pretty much is a Formula One wheel. Rectangular layout, so to provide greater visibility over the wheel. But also in here, it is quite a small tub. It's very much like being in an LMP1 car. Not that I've spent a great deal in an LMP1 car, but I have had the fortune of being able to sit in one, and it does feel like this. However, they are nowhere near this posh. Right, I'm going to place my wheel down here and show you how my best ability of gracefully exiting a Valkyrie. So, the trick is you have to stand on the seat and get yourself out, and I've respectfully taken my shoes off, because you do literally have to stand on the seat and lower yourself down, just like a formula car. Do you remember, by the way, when this was code-named Nebula, and the world thought that the Valkyrie was going to be called Nebula. That only seems a few weeks ago, and here we are with basically a near production-ready version of the Valkyrie. Now, what we don't have right now is any official statistics on the levels of downforce of this car, but judging by that colossal active... I mean, look at that. I mean, what that says is a lot. That's all you need to know. The main crux of this car is to develop the world's fastest street-legal car. So something that could wear number plates. Speaking of number plates, it will sit directly behind the exhaust system, and Aston have had to get special permission from at least the government of the UK to develop metal number plates for the Valkyrie specifically, so that it doesn't melt off the back of the car, because this is clearly a very high temperature zone. They've even used special military-grade coating on the wing so that it doesn't melt or affect the coating of the carbon fibre. And look at it sculpturally. I mean, up until now, I have only seen, and I guess you guys have only seen, a Valkyrie in its concept tub form, which is effectively a load of plastic. But this, look at the finish! Look at that! It's so F1! This induction tunnel here, which is feeding that 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12. Honestly, the highlight of my year is going to hear this thing turn on for the first time, and we will be there to share it with you firsthand. Sticky Michelin tyres, particularly developed for Valkyrie, even though they are based on a Pilot Sport Cup 2. How bonkers is that? This is going to be the fastest road car in the world, and it's going to be on Cup 2s. That is incredible. And here we are now, seeing for the first time the real aero work that is at play with the Valkyrie. Look in here. Look, these are all details that we just did not see on the concept car. Look at this. The airflow. It is absolutely incredible. These now are the wing mirrors, which are very well integrated with the screens inside the car, and these are very high definition screens that you'll be able to see what's going on all around you without compromising the aero. Wishbones here, fancy coating. I believe that Aston have worked in conjunction with the same people that developed the flexible wing on 003 to develop their windscreen wiper. I never thought I would have highlighted the significance of a wiper blade as much as I'm about to right now, but as with pretty much every component on this car, everything has a story. So by road legal regulations, it is dictated that a certain percentage of a windscreen has to be able to be wiped by the wiper blade in order to qualify for road-going homologation. As I mentioned when I was inside this car, it is like sitting in an LMP1 car, and therefore you have this really domed and angled windscreen, which a conventional wiper wouldn't be able to clear here. What Aston have designed is a wiper blade with, I quote, a drive shaft in it. You can just see it just in there. The effect this has is to articulate and bend the wiper across the full circumference of this screen so that it clears it optimally. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Look at that. And these are the details that you really don't appreciate on this car until somebody has explained it to you. So, once again, next level stuff from Aston. And here we are, 3D printed components for the lights. I'm not sure if you watched my video where we spec'd a Valkyrie, but we were talking about the checkerboard carbon, which was an optional extra within the headlight clusters. And here it is in its glory. And look at the intricacy and the detail of these lights. To stand here, what I think my favourite thing about seeing this car so far is the sum of its parts having such an incredible finish. And this isn't actually, you know, the production standard. This is their first prototype car, and eventually we will see this thing running. Speaking of running, I think we should take a look in the engine bay. This is somewhat of a world first. Behold the engine bay of the Aston Martin Valkyrie. A rundown of a few components which are at least available to see. This here, hydraulic bootstrap. This is to feed the car with all of the appropriate hydraulic fluids as and when required. Fancy carbon plenum. This is interesting. So this is a very fancy air filter. Now, if you think about the way this car operates from up here, air is sucked and channeled in from the intake here, and obviously pops out unfiltered directly into the engine bay. So when it's raining, effectively water will be coming out of here down directly into the airbox. And so what this is an ultra trick, ultra thin, water repellent air filter. So air is still capable of permeating this, but water isn't. Very clever stuff indeed. Speaking about all this hybrid tech, you're probably wondering where it is. Well, Aston have done an amazing job of condensing such a trick piece of kit in such a tight area. But effectively, around about here is where the E motor sits itself, between the engine and the gearbox. And then the battery pack is actually housed, I guess, what you would conventionally call the bulkhead. So you sort of sit between it and the engine. And then on top of the battery pack, which you can envisage here, is the inverter, which converts the DC current to AC current to power the whole system. It's all a bit mind-boggling, if I'm honest with you. I've had to run this by the engineers from Aston quite a few times. But overall, I'm just so incredibly impressed with the quality and the finish of everything. Like, this is what you would class, I guess, as the door handle to pull the door down once you're inside. And you actually open the door with a similar little tag pull here. So that is the tag in order to open this door to access this wonderful tub. And so ultimately, this is it. This is the car that no doubt we will be seeing a lot more of as Aston use it as their mule to develop this platform going forward. It's incredibly exciting. This is basically the manifestation of everything that Aston have been talking about. And lo and behold, it is here, and we shall see it turning a wheel very soon. So that was it. That was the first look of the verification prototype of the Aston Martin Valkyrie. This is it. It's everything that Aston have said they're going to do. It's beginning to show itself here. I cannot wait to see and hear this thing turn a wheel for the first time, which is no doubt going to be sometime this year. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time. Ciao.